Well, I've been on just about every protest that there's been. I think I missed one when I wasn't particularly well. So I've seen them. I've not been part of them as such. I've been there to observe and write articles for Police Oracle and whoever else wants them. Again, what we've seen is gross exaggeration of what's gone on. Whatever your views are on the situation with Palestine, those protests, by and large, as the Met have said, have been mainly without incident. Where you've got the incident with the War Memorial in Hyde Park, I didn't even know there was a War Memorial there, to be quite honest. And I'm not sure that the protesters who went running over it and were told to get down and did, were even aware of its significance. So that, again, I think has been blown a little bit out of proportion. Jihadi chants. I've heard twice on all the protests I've been on chants about jihad. Both by very small groups of people. One was a midweek protest outside Downing Street. Another one was the one in Carnaby Street outside Puma stores. But it was only a few people. So the majority of protesters, I think, haven't really been a problem for police. The worst violence that was seen, that the police had to deal with, was when counter-protesters, the football lads, turned up on the 11th of November. And even after 11 o'clock, they were still hanging around Parliament Square looking for confrontations. So that was the worst violence that I've seen. Again, it's a very emotive subject, isn't it? I've seen the footage. It was sent to me from the 7th of October. I've never seen anything more horrific in my life. I was in tears watching it. It will haunt me. But at the same time, of course, we now see these images, children being pulled from the rubble after Israeli bombing. You have to say that, yes, you can see the Israelis' point of view that Hamas, if they're not destroyed, will come back again and perhaps commit another atrocity. So it's a very complex issue for police officers to actually deal with. But by and large, in terms of disorder, there hasn't been a huge amount of disorder on these protests, which, considering the numbers and the emotions that this obviously engenders, is probably quite remarkable, to be quite honest. They create, or the media, sections of the media create this impression that it's like Attila the Hun, the hordes rampaging through the West End. Most of them are well behaved, may not agree with what they say, may not agree with some of the speakers, but they're not throwing insults at police, they're not attacking police officers. One attack on a police officer in Whitehall, he was quite badly hurt, he was hit over the head, which came out of nothing. I've not seen huge insults thrown at police officers, which you had with anti-lockdown protests, which you tend to have with more right-wing protests. Police officers just get abuse. I've seen very little of that. So whatever your views are, the majority of protesters who've gone on these protests so far haven't really caused any major problems. And even where you get pushing and shoving, that happened in St James's Park recently, I was there, it wasn't very pleasant, but nobody got badly hurt. But again, those little shots were portrayed on social media and mainstream media, and you looked at it and you thought, oh, it's a bit nasty. On a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being what we saw in 2011, where you had a real threat to life with the violence in those riots. The Palestinian protests, probably, that I've seen, the disorder would 2 out of 10 on the scale of disorder. But obviously the views are controversial, and many people feel that if you're waving a Palestinian flag, you're supporting Hamas. And that's where I think you get this sort of conflict in social media and mainstream media. But from a policing point of view, famous last words, so far the disorder hasn't been particularly significant. It's the numbers that have been a problem. And as for people saying, well, let's go in and smash it up, and well, if you banned it and you get 30,000 people turn up, what do you do then? And on these protests, you also get an inordinate amount of children, toddlers in pushchairs, and babies in prams. So if you do go in as police heavy-handed because they've been banned or something's happening you want to stop, and you get children getting injured, my goodness, can you imagine the stick the police would get then? So it's a complicated situation for the police.